Hey, welcome back. It's Tuesday, and that means here at To Be Remembered Designs on Facebook, we're having another tutorial. Last week I showed you how to use your Storybook Creator software or Photoshop Elements to create Project Life templates quickly and easily and beautifully so that you could get your layouts done, whether you are a Project Life scrapper or not. And I had a couple questions come up after the video about how to size your layouts so that when you print it looks like this, so that you have the extra border around the edge and you don't lose that with the trimming, whether you print individual page prints or whether you print in a bound book. So the first thing you need to do is decide whether you're going to print your layouts in a book or if you're going to do individual page prints, because the guidelines are different for each one. I will show you how to do both today. And here are the general guidelines. I can show that to you. Okay, so the basic trimming guidelines for printing digital pages. If you're planning on doing individual page prints, they recommend allowing 1/8 of an inch along each edge for trimming, so 1/4 inch total vertically and horizontally. If you're printing in a bound book, you would allow that same 1/8 of an inch along the top, bottom, and outside edge, and then a little bit extra in the middle because that's where it will be bound, and so a little bit more gets brought down into the inside. So they say 1/4 inch along the gutter, and that is what Storybook Creator is set up for. So if you're scrapping in Storybook Creator, you can use their guidelines, and that is exactly what you will have. If you are not, I can show you how to add guidelines onto your pages in like Photoshop. But again, you can see in the red, this is just a basic guide. It is not specific to all the different printing vendors that are out there. So please make sure that you check with Persnickety Prints or Shutterfly or whoever you're going to print through to make sure that your pages end up how you want them. But I will use this basic guideline and show you how to do that today. So let's go back to Storybook, and this is my layout I made with you last week during the tutorial, and you can see right now it looks great. And people said, well, I want it to look like that when it's printed, and aren't you going to lose some of that when you print? And yes, you will lose some of this when you print. Unfortunately, templates are often set up that way, where they have elements going right up to the edge, and if you're not careful, you'll lose some of that. So the first thing you want to do if you're going to print as a individual page to include in your album at home is check the trimmed view. And that will show you what it will look like printed with that 1/8 of an inch guide around the edge. So you can see this little bit that gets weighted out. If you zoom in, you'll see that that is 1/8 of an inch big. Zoom in and I'll move over so you can see. So you can see right here, if this is an inch, this would be 1/3 or 3/4 and 1/2 and 1/4. So this is 1/2 of 1/4, so that would be an 1/8 inch that they take off here. And you can see that you lose a little bit of your border around it. You lose it completely on this edge. There's not much on this edge. You've got a little bit on the top and bottom. But if you want to resize your elements on your page so that you have that nice border on the edge, this is how you do it. So you would say Control A, and that selects everything on your page. You can see it's all highlighted over here. But we don't want to resize like the background. So I'm going to hit Control, and that will allow me to unselect these bottom layers while still keeping the top layers selected. And now we're going to want to group, but hold on, I forgot to do something first. When we resize this, it's going to resize your text box, and so your text won't fit in your text box anymore, it will change. So if this is how you want your text and you like it like this, I would recommend flattening that text box before we resize. Otherwise you're going to have to make changes afterward. If you're not sure that the text is exactly how you want it, then don't flatten it. But you can right click and say flatten, and that will keep that text box just like that, so that when we resize everything, the actual text will get resized and not just the text box. So let's go back now and hit Control A to select everything again, and we'll hit Control and then click on these to unselect them. And now we're going to group everything. So you can do that from the Arrange tab, or you can right click and say Group, either one. So let's group it all, and it will put it all into one layer together. You can see right here. And now with our Shift button held down so that we don't warp anything, we're going to just resize it a little bit, maybe like that. And then still with it grouped, we're going to go to Home, Align, Center on Page. Oh, I've got some extra space over here, it looks like, so I'm just going to use my arrow button and move it how I want it. That little ribbon I have must be hanging off the edge a little bit there. Alright, so move it so that it looks centered to you. There you go. And then if you come back to the Arrange tab, or you can right click again, you can ungroup, and it will break those layers back up for you. So that is one way to have your layout set up so that it will print and it will be nice. And it looks like to me still I'm not quite centered, so I'm going to move it back over a little bit. So I hit Control A to select all. I'm going to unselect those and just move it over maybe one notch. There you go. And so now your layout is ready. Now when you look at the full view, so if you look at the whole page, it looks like you've got a lot of space here, but remember that's not going to print at most printers. Most printers have a little bleed zone, and you're going to lose that little space. So there you go. That's how you can do it for page prints in Storybook Creator. If you're printing in an actual book, it's a little bit different. So we're going to look at the 2-page view. So you can see, even with it resized, how I resized it, I'm still losing my border along this right edge here. So if you go to 2-page view, you can select standard or lay flat pages. I always just do standard, so my directions are for standard. It'll be slightly different if you're a lay flat kind of person. But if you want that border around this side too, you're going to have to adjust even more. And that's up to you. It's a personal preference. This wouldn't bother me, but if you're somebody who it would bother, then you can adjust even more, because remember you have to have that 1/4 inch along the side instead of just the 1/8 inch. So if we look at the gutter view, that will show you in your book how it's going to print. So you have this 1/8 inch around the top, the outside, and the bottom edges, and then on the inside you have that standard 1/8 inch, but then you also have this other 1/8 inch where it's going to get sucked down into the binding. So there's a total 1/4 inch over here. And you've got a couple options. If you don't want to make it even smaller so that you can have some space over here, you can simply resize a couple of your boxes. So if we take these 2 boxes, we can resize them just a tad. So I'm going to click this box and I'm just going to drag it in a little bit. And then I'm going to pick this and then this one and say make them the same width. Oh, I had twisted this. Never mind. Well, usually that would work for you, but I had rotated my layout. Okay, and my boxes are not live still, so it didn't adjust her, but if you do this before you flatten your boxes and cut the corners, it will work just fine. So now I'm just picking everything along the side, and I'm just going to shift it all over a little bit so I have a little bit of a border on this side. And that's done then. If you don't want to do that, you can hit Control A and then unclick these 3 by holding Control down, and you can group them back up. And you can resize it even more. Just hold down Shift so that you have more of a space along the right edge here, but then keep in mind that your spaces won't be even the whole way around, because you'll have more empty space on the top and bottom than on the left and right, since this left or this right edge gets cut off more. So it just depends on how even you want everything to look. But you can group everything and then resize them together, and that will help you with your getting your layout how you want it for printing. Now if you go back to the page view, this is going to look funny. It's going to see how this is so much more open here. And before you do this, make sure that you know exactly where this page is going to be in your book, because now if later you decide, oh, this isn't in the right spot, I need it to be over here, then it's going to look funny, because it'll be, you know, we had designed it so that this edge was the gutter and not this edge. So keep an eye on that too. If you are a Photoshop girl, I can show you how to add guidelines so that you can do the same idea. And this was the other template I made last week, and I didn't save it with my pictures. This is what it looked like, in case you don't remember. So I have everything but my pictures in here. And if you want to add those guidelines, so on my book, this is on the right side, so I will have my gutter over here on the left edge. So I'm going to add in my guidelines. So if you go to View, you can add New Guide. And I want my first one to be at 0.25. So that's my 1/4 inch, and that will be right here. And then I want to add another new one, and I want that one to be 1/8 of an inch in from the right edge. So if you take 1/8 of an inch away from 12 inches, you get 11.875. And then I want to add my top and bottom guideline. So the top one will be at 1/8 inch, so 0.125. Whoops, just hit undo. Yeah, I forgot to change it to horizontal. Horizontal will be 0.125. And then another horizontal one at the bottom at that 11.875 again. So this will show you that bleed zone, and if you are just doing a page print, you would have made this one 1/8 of an inch also, and not the 1/4 inch that I made it. And now you can see that when this prints, according to these guidelines, these boxes will be right up on the edge, so I'll lose that extra space there. So if you want to adjust everything, you can do that easily. You just come over here and click your top layer, and then hold down Shift and go down to the bottom of your layers. You don't want the background paper. And then you don't have to group or anything, you can just go ahead and resize. So I'm just going to drag it a little bit smaller, and then I can use my arrow buttons and move it up and over so that I have it where I want it. And then just hit the green check to confirm, or the red circle to go back to how it was before. So now I will have my layout ready to print in a book, and I'll have a little bit of a border around all the edges. And again, if you want them all to be perfectly even, you can do that. It will just be, you'll have to change the sizes of a couple of these boxes so that it's perfectly square in there, just like I did in the storybook one. And then when you're all done, you can go to View and you can clear your guides if you want to see what it would look like. So you have a little bit of extra border around here, more than you would normally use probably, but remember, when it prints, you're going to lose some of that. Okay, so that's how you do it in Photoshop Elements and Storybook Creator, and now your pages can get ready for printing. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you next week.